Hi. Okay, so as you can see from the title, this video is a little bit about how I ended up in Querétaro as a Jamaican, why I'm here, and what I love about this place. So it's a funny story, and it's definitely not any story you've heard of, the typical expat who's looking for a place to go out of their home country. I literally ended up here by accident. Or, as I like to say, my soul wanted to be here. But the circumstances that brought me here were painful, even though I can now look back and laugh because I'm looking at the greater, life plan and what life is. But before I get into it, my name is Chereese La-Vonne. I'm an experienced designer and intuitive coach, and I'm based in Querétaro, Mexico. I'm originally from Jamaica, and I spend my time here organizing retreats as well as offering intuitive coaching services for people who want to have an intuitive reading, get an understanding of some of the energy blocks that might be getting in between them and the life that they desire, and really just helping you to live your most authentic life. So that's what I'm all about. Authenticity by way of intuition and also being very intentional about your life. But here's the thing, even when we try to be intentional, life takes us on a loop sometimes. So let's start from the beginning. I left Jamaica in 2018 to go to Chicago to study for my master's degree in designed objects. By 2019, I was so depressed that I needed to run back home because the winter had taken me out. Working and trying to manage my degree at the same time was very, very difficult and had worked me out. And I decided I needed to take a break. I'm going to earn some money, get my mental health back in shape, and then go back to school. So, went back home, got an opportunity to join an entrepreneurship program in Chicago. This was now 2020, February of 2020. And on February 4th, 2020, I left my little apartment in Jamaica to go back to Chicago, not for school this time, but this time to make some money. At the time, I had designed these beautiful wood-covered journals that are no longer in production, but I do hope to bring them back very, very soon. And everybody who comes on my retreats actually do get one of these journals. So I produce them, in small batches just for my retreats right now. But I had this beautiful journal business that I was building. And if you're on Instagram, you can look up at Studio La-Vonne, Studio Lavonne, and you might be able to find some of that there. That I went back to Chicago to try to develop this business. And well, as you know, 2020 is when everything went to shit. Or, or everything went to really pushing us to decide and understand if we're really being our most authentic selves. And that's what I think 2020 did for me. So halfway through my entrepreneurship program or fellowship that I was a part of, the pandemic and lockdowns, happened. I was stuck in Chicago. I couldn't leave. Obviously, my business plans were derailed, even though I was able to kind of still sell some journals to get myself by. I eventually had to leave the US because my visa was about to be up, and I decided to follow my partner to Mexico. Now, what happened is I decided to follow my partner to Mexico, and then we got to Mexico and the partnership just fell apart. And that's the part of the story that's a little bit comical / painful, because I had already been in this phase of, okay, the world is falling apart. I don't know what's going on. My business is falling apart, but at least I'm going to Mexico with the love of my life at the time, and we're going to have the best time together. It did not happen like that. Within a week, we were broken up, and I was in Mexico alone, not knowing the language, not having family, not having work, and really having to try to figure out how am I going to do this life thing. What happened for me, which I think was really beneficial, and I'm sure it happened for a lot of other people too, was because of how everything around me was no longer secure, I really went inward in a way that I don't think I had before. I've always been spiritual. So I grew up in a Christian household. My parents are actually pastors, they had their own church. I grew up, waking up 6 a.m., doing my devotions, personal devotions, then going into family devotions, then on the way to school, discussing whatever spiritual lessons we had learned. And while the brand of Christianity that I was taught doesn't quite fit how I see spirituality, I still had that practice, right? That practice of seeking and finding and searching after what is this God thing, or searching after a deeper meaning in life. And so I've always had an aspect of spirituality or self awareness in my life, always. And I give thanks to my parents for that base. But when the pandemic hit, it took me to a whole new level. I think one of the things that started happening, because again, I'm disconnected from my family because I couldn't return to Jamaica. Also, by that time, I had come out to my family as pansexual, which created a huge rift in our relationship. When I say huge rift, it's a rift that has not been repaired 2 years later. So I basically was ejected from the family. I'm in a new country where I don't know the language. All of these things, all I could possibly do was trust God. Like, literally, it was like there was a thing where it came to my mind where I said, Chereese, at this point, you have nothing else that you can do but go forward in faith. And I don't even think I said that consciously. I think it was almost like just the trauma and the shock of everything just. And so that's what I did. My days were filled with waking up in the morning and just being still, lighting my incense, singing my Buddhist chants because I find those help me to connect, doing my yoga, praying, journaling, meditating, finding online courses in meditation. That literally was my life for about 6 to 8 months of the pandemic. 3 months before I got to Mexico, and then 6 months after I got to Mexico. So that's about 9 months. In those first 6 months, I need you to understand something. I didn't have a set job. I didn't have a set plan. I didn't have any idea of what tomorrow was going to be. I was literally living in the present moment, connecting with a flow that I never knew before, that I never understood before, but that was just suddenly guiding me. And I had housing, I had food, I had everything I needed. If I was sick, I was led to get the things that I needed to do to get them. And I'll tell you a little bit more about those stories and how it worked. But basically, I was just living in a state of intuitive flow. Do you understand what I'm saying? It was magic. Like, it literally was magic. And that has given me a better understanding of how we can access magic. So I feel like I was supposed to start talking about Querétaro and why I'm in Querétaro, but this has gone a little bit more, and I'll talk about Querétaro in a bit, but this has gone a little bit deeper to really more about just how I am living my life right now and how I came to live this life and how valuable this life is. And it's very interesting because this is also the theme of the retreats that I do, really supporting you in getting back in touch with your intuitive voice in a really transformative way by the actual practices that have worked for me. So when the pandemic hit and everything happened, one of the things and one of the thoughts that came to me was, the world really, I could tell the world obviously had changed forever. And, in the midst of watching the news, watching CNN, hearing that horrible horror sounding music that they played every time they were talking about COVID-19, I started to understand that life is not predictable. You see, a lot of people put the pandemic as this once in a lifetime situation. And what I started to reason was, okay, but how many once in a lifetime situations have I lived through already in just at that point, my 30 years of living? There's the pandemic, there was September 11, there was the tsunami in Southeast Asia. There was the grand earthquake in Haiti. There was all these things that at the time that they occurred, everyone said, oh, this is a once in a lifetime thing. And just lumping the pandemic and all of that, I started to say to myself, Chereese, life is more unpredictable than it is predictable. And if life is more unpredictable than it is predictable, and if your life is literally about to change forever, I want you to live the most authentic life ever. And so I really started to question why I was doing what I was doing, how I was being, how I was presenting myself to the world. You know, who was I? What am I? You know, where am I going? And this sort of inquiry really led me to a lot of shadow work. My ex-partner was actually a shadow worker, and she was very helpful in helping me understand my shadows and even the fact, just the reality of what shadows are. And if you have no idea about what shadow work is, I would encourage you to do some research, because I'm sure you can find some stuff on it. But it really is just, at the end of the day, getting to understand the parts of yourself that you probably literally put in the shadows, that you don't really want anybody to know, getting to understand that part of yourself, so that you can see yourself in your entirety to integrate, right? And it's not so much as judging shadow as bad or light as good. It's just, this is all that I am. If you are unconscious about parts of yourself, then that unconscious part of yourself will still be existing, but you're not aware of it, and it could be creating havoc in your life, and you're like wondering what's happening. And in my intuitive sessions, this is part of what I support people in, helping them to see that part of themselves that they may be unconscious about or choosing to ignore, that is actually having a profound impact on their life, because everything is energy, right? So the authenticity and really questioning who I am is what started guiding me, and guiding my intentions more than money, more than even survival. It was just very interesting how easily, I guess because again I had no other choice, I just fell on God. I just fell on spirit. And so what happened, and what I think was really beneficial for me, was being in Mexico, not speaking the language, not having family, not having a culture that felt familiar, not having any friends, not having anything that I had previously used to define myself, gave me a level of freedom that I never had ever allowed myself to experience before. I'm not going to say I didn't have that freedom, because we are always free, but it's whether or not we allow ourselves to experience the truth of who we are, right? I had never allowed myself to experience that level of freedom. And so the question started coming up. Who am I if I am not my parents' daughter? Who am I if I'm not my sibling's sister? Who am I if I'm not Miss Jamaica Festival Queen? Who am I if I'm not an architectural designer? Who am I if I'm not in school to be an object designer? Who am I if I'm not an entrepreneur? Who am I if I'm not someone's girlfriend? Who am I if I'm not a community leader? Who am I if I don't even speak English or Spanish or whatever? Who am I if I don't speak a language? Just at the essence, at the core of my entire being, just at the core, like on an essential level, who am I? And so those first 6 months of being in Mexico, I didn't consider myself anything. I just existed. And what happened was, a family member who I didn't hear from in forever would call me and say, hey, I heard about what's going on with your family. I'm going to send you some money. Or there would be a grant that just showed up randomly, and I would win an artist grant. Or I would make a friend who would introduce me to new spaces in Mexico, and this is how I got to experience ayahuasca. And I actually have been trained in holding space shamanically in these ayahuasca ceremonies. It's how I well it's just how I experienced a lot, right? So coming back to Querétaro really was an accident. It's just because my partner was living here, which is why I ended up in Querétaro. But once I did get here, I had been so tired of running because the pandemic really had displaced me. I decided I'm just gonna stay with or without her. I'm gonna stay. And so I did. And a year and a half later, I'm still in Querétaro. And this is what I love about it. So now, 15 minutes into the video, we're getting to the point of the video. Listen, this is how I talk. I go off. And I've really been thinking about sharing a lot on this channel for a very long time. And I've decided I'm just going to show up as authentically as possible. So hopefully what I've shared has been valuable. And I do know that sometimes when I speak, spirit starts to speak through me. And so maybe I had one intention, but there was something that needed to be said or needed to be heard that you can hear from what I have to share. I really don't like how this chair is squeaking. Anyways, so what do I love about Querétaro? If you ask anybody in Querétaro why they are in Querétaro, they will all say the same thing. It's the most peaceful place. It's tranquil. It's amazing. One of my favorite things is the historic center, which is where I live. I live right on the edge of the historic center, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it is full of colonial architecture. There are cobblestones. At night, it's the most charming thing. At sunset, Plaza Fundadores or Plaza de la Cruz is just the most romantic movie scene place you've ever seen. There are a ton of plazas or parks that are public spaces that usually have like a water feature or grass, lots of benches, people, activity, pigeons, that kind of stuff that you can go around. And literally when I'm in Querétaro, I just feel like I'm living in a rom-com when I'm living in the historic center. But another thing that I love about Querétaro, number two, outside of the historic center, so that's my number one thing that I love about this town, Querétaro actually is a sprawling city and a very modern city at that. There is so much access to so many different types of activities, professions, experiences, and it's a very well built up town, city, not town, city. So for me, another thing is I really love the small town feel because I'm from Jamaica. I'm from Mandeville, Jamaica. I grew up in a tiny, 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 tiny town. There were 20 people in my class. Well, I also went to a small school. So I've been in small contexts like most of my life. There were 20 people in my class in high school. When I did the upper level of high school, which we call sixth form, it was just about 5 of us. By that time, I had been living in Trinidad. That's for another story. When I got back to Jamaica to do my first degree in architecture, my class size was 40 people, which is small for a university cohort. And yeah, so I like things that don't feel overwhelming, but I love modern access, right? So that was one of the things I loved about studying in Chicago and living in Chicago. I had the opportunity to learn and explore and open my mind beyond what a small town will give you, even though I love the feeling of coziness and safety of a small town. So living in the historic center, I get that cozy feeling because I know the streets. It's a grid. You can't get lost. I know where the markets are. I know where the plazas are. I know where the edge is. I feel safe and secure here. But if I want to, explore something like indoor rock climbing or parkour, which I did this week, or laser tag. I just love fun stuff. If I want to do something like that, on the outskirts of the center, a 20-minute cab ride, 30-minute cab ride, I'm there and I have that. On a professional level, I actually haven't looked at what's available professionally, but I also know that the town has a lot of opportunity for creatives and artists, and the people and friends that I make are all really grounded, spiritually rooted, eco-conscious, artistic, amazing people. And so that's the third thing I love about Querétaro. The people are just really nice. There's a real warmth here. There's a genuine. It's just chill. It really is just chill. But then also there's a lot of space for creativity to blossom and a lot of opportunity for creative collaboration as well. I've done talleres. I've done workshops in pottery, in tela, which is fabric workshops. I've done um, linoleum printing workshops. So even as an artist and a creative person, I think that would be my third favorite thing about Querétaro. So one is the historic center, two is the access, and three is the food. So I would say those are my three favorite things about Querétaro. I really didn't have a number in mind before I started this video, but that's gonna be what I have to say about that. So I think that's it. I think that's it. I think the last thing I want to say is, when we're considering moving in life, especially because this move was not a planned move. Again, life brought me here. People say to me, why did you come to Querétaro? And I tell them, do you want the victim story or do you want the enlightened story? And if they want a victim story, I tell them the story of, oh, I came with my partner and then we broke up. But if I say the enlightened story is my soul wanted to be here. Like, I'm so at home in a way I've never felt at home before. And I'm going to say something. I don't believe it's just the location. I do believe it's an element of coming home to myself. And I think that's probably something I can talk about another time, or why not talk about it now? The idea that home is not a place. It's not even my body. I used to think home was my body. Yes, I do inhabit my body, but these days I see home more as a frequency. I see more home as the frequency where I am aligned in my mind, in my emotions, in my body, in my energy, and in my spirit, right? Where all of those things are in alignment, that frequency, that's home. And once I have that alignment, mind, body, energy, spirit, emotions, I can feel at home anywhere. And so that is the last point that I wanted to share. I've seen people considering moving to Mexico or considering moving anywhere. And there's a lot of questions, which I think is fair. It's okay. It's okay. It makes sense to ask practical questions. What's the housing situation like, or what's the income situation like, or all of these things. But don't forget to actually ask your soul how it feels. We don't always need to have the details when it comes to what's the next step in life. We really don't. We just have to have an awareness of what our home frequency is. And when we are thinking of a particular decision, does it feel like home or does it feel like discord? Like, feel it. I remember how in Christianity, the Christianity I grew up with, and this is one of the reasons why I don't really relate to it, I was taught not to trust my feelings. I can understand being wise about how you express your feelings. However, we are sensory beings. We have to navigate this world not through mind alone, but through intuitive awareness and knowing, which is a beautiful, amalgamation of our energetic systems, what our body is doing, what our mind is doing, what our emotions are doing, who we are on a spiritual level. All of those things come together for us to be able to sense what's right for us. And so I'm not going to apologize if you clicked on this video hoping to find some, facts, hoping to find some facts about the town that would make you want to move here, because I don't work by facts, I work by feelings, and I create my facts based on my feelings, right? So I create my reality. I decide what my reality is going to be. And for me, I could have decided that Querétaro was going to mean heartbreak. It was going to mean isolation. It was going to mean, confusion and lack of fitting in based on the energy with which I got here and all that happened when I first got here. But I decided no, Querétaro is going to feel like home. It's going to feel safe. It's going to feel loving. And that's what I'm experiencing. So if you're considering a move anywhere, don't forget to check into your emotions, to your intuition, and allow things to unfold beautifully. I do want to share as well that if you are interested in visiting Querétaro, I do have a retreat coming up. You can find all the information for that on my website, soulmirrorwellness.com/retreat. And this retreat is specifically designed to support you in getting back in touch with your intuition and in alignment with all of your bodies. So I had mentioned them before. We aren't just our physical bodies, we are also our mental bodies, emotional bodies, energetic bodies, and spiritual bodies. And so this retreat is specifically designed to expose you to the practices and experiences in Querétaro, in Mexico, and inwardly, that has supported me in strengthening my intuition and living a life that feels so fucking good. Because it's guided by intuition, powered by intention, and ultimately the most authentic life I could have ever lived. I'd love to tell you more about my lovely authentic life here in Querétaro, and I think I will do that on another video. But for now, that's what I have to say, and be well. Sending lots of love, lots of strength, and the highest intentions for you to encounter the truth of your soul identity and to manifest that identity in this world. Ciao. Walk good.